Lesson 13.3, Making Predictions Using Theoretical Probability. So we've learned about how to find the theoretical probability of an event occurring. Now what we're going to do is take it a step further and use the theoretical probability that we find to make a prediction about something more occurring. So in example 1, we are rolling a standard number cube 150 times. So rather than rolling it one time, we're going to roll 150 times. But because it's theoretical, we're not actually going to do that. So what we want to do is predict how many times you will roll a 3 or a 4 if you were to roll it 150 times. So the first thing we need to do is figure out, well, what is just the theoretical probability of rolling a 3 or a 4 on a number cube? So we know that there are 6 total outcomes. And of those 6, 2 are a 3 or a 4. So the theoretical probability of rolling a 3 or a 4 is 2 out of 6, or I could reduce it to 1/3. So this is what I use in my next step where I set up a proportion. So 1/3, meaning if I roll it 3 times, one of those times will be a 3 or a 4. So my proportion is going to look like this, where now instead of rolling it 3 times and one of them being a 3 or a 4, now I'm going to roll it 150 times. I'll make that look like a 0, sorry. So I'm rolling it 150 times. How many times is it going to be a 3 or a 4? So in this proportion, I can solve this 2 different ways. Some of you may just be able to look at this and know, oh, x equals 50. Or I can cross multiply and set up an equation. So 3 times x is 3x. 1 times 150 is 150. And I divide by 3 on both sides, resulting in x equaling 50. So what that means is if I roll the cube, or the dice, 150 times, 50 of those rolls will be a 3 or a 4. Now what I'd like you to do is pause the video real quick and try this problem about Celia, and then let's check to see if it matches with what I have done. So, Celia volunteers at her local animal shelter. She has an equally likely chance to be assigned to the dog, cat, bird, or reptile section. If she volunteers 24 times, about how many times should she expect to be assigned to the dog section? So the first thing we need to figure out is what is the probability if she goes that she's assigned to the dog section. And there are 4 equally likely but different outcomes, and one of which is the dog. So the theoretical probability of being assigned to the dog is 1/4, or a 25% chance. Now setting up my proportion, she's going 24 times. So 1/4 is equal to what out of 24? So I can look at this and know, oh, x is equal to 6. Or I can cross multiply and set up an equation just like I did in example 1. So she should expect to be assigned to the dog section 6 times if she were to volunteer 24 times total. Now the second example is making a prediction or making a qualitative prediction. So a quantitative prediction, as in example 1, is a numerical prediction, such as rolling the dice 50 times, or rolling the dice 150 times and it being a 3 or a 4 50 times. A qualitative prediction is just saying if something is likely or not likely or impossible to occur. So, example 2, Herschel pulls a sock out of his drawer without looking and puts it on. The sock is black. There are 7 black socks, 8 white socks, and 5 striped socks left in the drawer. He pulls out a second sock without looking. Is it likely that he will be wearing matching socks to school? So essentially we want to know what is the likelihood that he pulls out a black sock. So the first thing we need to do is figure out what is the probability that what is the probability that he pulls out a black sock. So we need to figure out how many total outcomes there are. So that's 7 plus 8 plus 5, which is 20. And of those 20 different outcomes, 7 of them are black. So he has a 7 out of 20 chance of it being black. So that's the likely chance. And then what does he have for it being unlikely? And that's just the remainder, the white socks and the striped socks, which is 13 out of 20. And that's the unlikely chance that he's not wearing matching socks. And if we look here, 13 out of 20 is more acceptable or more likely to occur than the probability of 7 out of 20, which would be wearing black socks. So we would say that it is unlikely that he will wear matching socks. So we call this a qualitative prediction because there's not a numerical answer. All right, so you have 2 questions for the Your Turn. Go ahead and try those. As always, if you have questions, we will talk about them tomorrow. So like I can go back.